Hello, my friends. This is Chess Cruncher. This is one of my games, another one of my games that I played at the U.S. Chess Open, and I wanted to show you. And it's a really good game, and I hope you enjoy. So let us begin. I'm sorry. By the way, I'm black, and my opponent is white. His name is Paul Swayer, and of course I'm Jeremy, so you know that already. So let's begin. Okay, D4, D5, Knight C3, E4. E6. I'm doing Philidor's defense, and then he goes Knight F3. The reason he does that is he's developing. But the only issue is he's blocking in his C and his F pawns. If he wants to push them later on, he'll have to move his knight out of the way. So sometimes it's better to, rather than bring your knight out really right away, is to bring your F pawn up or your C pawn. And rather than doing C3 on move 2, he should have actually pushed knight c3. He should have actually pushed his c pawn to c4 and then asked the question if I wanted to trade a central pawn for his side pawn. That would have been a better, but c3, knight c3 is good also. But the only drawback is it blocks your c pawn. Okay, I played b4, pinning his knight to his king. And that was a very powerful move. Yes, he could kick me out, but he has to ruin his queen side, and then I can move my bishop back to e2, or I can move it back to d3, and also have pressure against the h2 pawn if he castles. Like I could bring my queen out to if he moved his f knight, f3 knight, I can bring my queen to h4 and threaten checkmate on h2. If he castles. He goes a3, of course, kicking my bishop out. I go a5, keeping the pressure of the knight against the king. Then he goes d2. He's getting ready to, he unblocks the pin on the king. I go knight e7. The reason I did that was I'm freeing up the ability to castle kingside if I want to. And he goes e3. He's opening up his line for his light squared bishop, but if you notice, his dark squared bishop is trapped on the. Oh, he only has two files it could go to. Diagonals. Okay, it can only go to c1 or d2. Okay, and then I castle. Now I'm ready to get the party started. He goes e3, e2. The reason he's doing that is he wants to castle kingside also. I go d7. I'm getting the pieces out. With d7, I can always swing my knight to b6, and then I can swing it down to c4 and put it in a good position. Or I can just keep it there and keep the pressure so that he can't play c4. That's what he wants to do. So he castles like we said he would. I go c5. I'm putting the question to him: does he want to trade? And then I'll have two center pawns for his wing pawn. It also doubles his pawns. But if you notice, I have a knight there. They can take it, and then again, I can have a centralized knight and a very powerful knight. It can, if he trades d takes c5, I can do knight takes c5, and then I can, if he allows me to, I can swing my knight into e4, and that's a beautiful square. Eight squares the knight could attack at d4. E4. Sorry. He moves his knight to a2. He also I never understood why he did that. It was like that's like a beginner move because it doesn't really do anything. it wastes a turn. I guess he can push his b pawn to b4 and threatening a double attack on my c pawn, but I don't see any reason that it's not a very good move. Okay, let's continue. He allows me to push. Now I have a humongous, if you notice, a wall of pawns. I have a pawn at f7. I have a pawn at e6. I have a pawn at d5, and then I have a pawn at c4. It's taking. Remember when the light squared bishop, had all that diagonal to go up and down with now? I trapped it in. It's like it's now. It really doesn't have any squares to go. It's totally trapped in. He goes g4. I don't understand why he did that. It weakened his h3 for a knight to pop in there for a check. Or his f3 for another knight to pop in there for a check. It also allows my bishop to come to c7 and attack it, and if I can get a knight to a spot where it can also attack, I can check. Yeah, that wasn't really a good move. I guess if he wants to attack in the king side, he probably should start with h3, then g4, because then that has some protection of the g pawn. But he played g4, so let's continue on. I go knight f6, attacking the pawn. See the weakness. He goes h1. I go bishop c7. Look at, remember I told you I'd drop my bishop back to c7. The reason is, remember, his weakness is his h2 pawn. He can't play, because he played g4, he can't play g3 to block the attack. All I have to do is play knight takes g4, and then there's a double attack on the king. If you notice, my knight could take the pawn, or my bishop could take the pawn. And then if I move my e7 knight out of the way, I could bring my queen in there and my bishop, and it's just going to be a destruction. He goes rook g1, protecting his g1. I'm sorry, his g4 knight and pawn. He blocked his king in. But he had to do that, or like I said, I would have played knight takes, and it just would have been a very bad move, bad thing if he didn't. I go d6. Remember, the pressure again is on the h2 pawn. My focus is totally on that. He goes rook to g3. He's trying to block, but now one of his major pieces is blocked in. If he ever moves it, I can actually move my queen out of the way, and it's attacking his rook all the way through to h2. But I bring my knight in. I say, fine, let's do this. He goes g1 again, trying to get out. I go knight takes g3. I'm just going back. I want to go back to that move when my knight moved to e4. He should have played knight takes e4, and then I could play pawn takes, and that will attack, and then I can bring my f pawn to f5, and if he takes, then I'll take, and I'll have a pretty good central pawn position, and it's just going to be horrible. But of course he missed it. And he played king to g1. I played knight takes g3. H takes g3. Knight g6. Wow, that's a strong move, because he can't push the pawn, and it also allows me to get ready to push my f pawn, because it's just a great move. He goes g2. Protecting the g2 the G3 pawn. I go bang, E5. I'm putting the question to him. That's right. He attacks. I play queen. Now I'm pinning his knight. He goes B3. I go C takes B3. He goes C takes B3. Then I go E takes D4. Pawn takes D4. I go rook E8. Probably maybe a better move rather than rook E8 might have been bishop takes G4, because his knight is pinned to his king. That would be two attackers. Then I can always bring my knight to E5, again attacking the knight, a triple attack. Then I could bring maybe a rook. I could trade rook takes bishop, or maybe I could play knight takes, then bishop, and then I can bring it down. There's a lot of different options that I can have if I would have taken the G4 knight. But I did E8. He did bishop F1. I went bang. Now there's a double. There's one pin. The queen pins the king to the king, the knight to the king. Then my bishop pins it to the queen, so it's a pin against the king and the queen. It's not very often that you see that. It's beautiful. He goes rook to C2, attacking my bishop. I go, don't think so. I'm moving out. Now I'm attacking the pawn, and I can win a pawn. He goes bishop to B5, attacking my rook. I go rook E6. That really wasn't a very good move, because if you notice, it puts my my queen and my rook on the same diagonal, and he could play bishop to C4. I'm going to go back, and we're going to look at where the rook could have gone. Okay, we're just going to go back to where the rook was at E8. I probably could have went to, let's see, maybe rook to C8. Maybe let him take my rook and play a knight to, no, he would have taken that. I'll have to do a little more analyzing of this, but I play rook to E6, but I was blessed. He didn't see it. He played queen C1, and then I played queen takes F3, check, and that was it was a double blunder on his part. It ends the game right away. He goes G1. I go bishop H3. There's no way he can protect his king, because the only way is to give up the bishop, or maybe bring the bishop back to F1. Then I could bring my knight in, or I could bring my rook over, and then I have a checkmate on after I move my knight on the H1 file. But he again makes a mistake. He goes to rook C8, check. Rook takes rook, and you're thinking, oh no, he could have checkmate. Nope. Watch this. Knight F8. Game over. Because there's nothing he can do now. It's over. Maybe, like we said, he can bring his bishop down, and I can play. Then I can take. I can take the D4 pawn. All right. Yeah, that'd probably be a good one. Yeah. That was a mistake. He does E1. I go rook takes. He goes king H2, and then G2. I want to. That's checkmate. But I wanted to go back and show you one that was a little quicker. Okay, I'm gonna go back like 3. Okay, I'm gonna go back a little bit. I could have, rather than played rook takes bishop, I could have played queen to g2, and again that would have been checkmate. So that with that, I checkmated my opponent, and I hope you learned a lot and had fun. God bless, and I'll see you next time.